in many ways, this review, more than any other review, really defines, in a nutshell, me, the entire site, the entire purpose of the site and the videos. This is pretty much it, because if you let me, I will ramble on about Highlander forever. And in many ways, this is what I'm doing. This is basically just me rambling about... Really, Highlander is one of my favorite movies. It's not my ultimate favorite movie, but honestly, this is... I must have seen Highlander hundreds of times, because I love it. It's a defining movie of the decade. It's one of the greatest action movies ever made. And I'm not saying that like it's a flawless movie. I'm not saying it like the acting is superlative or it's an Oscar-worthy movie, but really it's one of the most fun and original and enduring action movies around. I love it. It's so good, in fact, that it still has fans. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. And it was so good that we're fans of Highlander are pretty much doomed to watch and experience everything that has the Highlander name on it. And I don't think there's a fan base that's been as systematically betrayed and just... I hate to use the word raped, but that's almost what it's like, is like we're just victims at this point. Highlander has never even come close to reaching the heights since the first movie, and I don't think there's ever been a series cataclysmic fall from grace as Highlander 2. It was just immediate, it was just... It went from the best to the absolute worst, and it's one of the most notorious and glorious and spectacular cinematic suicides I think any franchise has ever endured. To the point where it's the ultimate running joke. Even today, when you're talking about a really shitty movie, the movie you think about is Highlander. I mean, it's a really short list of movies that you think about are just the ultimate bombs. Like, Ishtar. Nobody mentions... I guess that's number 2 on the list, but Highlander 2 is where it's at. Really, I don't know why it took me this long to get to it. It's been in the stack, ever since the beginning. My short list of things that I must do. I guess I got hung up on games or something like that. But man, I was sitting around. I think it must have been like Kick-Assy. I was sitting around. I was like, why have I not done this until now? This is like the one thing I talk about endlessly. It must have been I was sitting around, as so many inspirations come. I was sitting around with the walkers, and we're talking about Dune. Dune's another one that I will ramble endlessly about. But yeah, Highlander. So I'm not even sure how much I'm bound to repeat myself, considering this review. I usually forget what I say in these reviews. And the fact that I'm actually doing 2 more Highlander reviews, and I'm going to leave those as a surprise, although you've probably guessed at least one of them. But it's so bad, and... This didn't really ever seem that hard to me. Now, there is the initial challenge. At the end of the first movie, he wins. He wins the prize. It's over. I don't think they ever made this movie planning a sequel in mind, and so there's your first hurdle right there. You get this movie where he wins, and then you figure, well, what do you do here? And so you got to come up with an explanation. And so I guess they just... figured aliens, and it's like, what if more aliens came? I don't know. Maybe they figured, like, maybe there's immortals on all sorts of worlds, and the winners of the prize of each one, they go together fight, and that's actually a better movie idea, but this didn't seem that hard to me, for one very simple reason. These guys are immortal. They live forever, and so there's a great deal of history that is not explored with these dudes. And so my solution, and one that they've never really done, is a prequel. You could even have the same characters go back in time and do something where it's basically, the intervening, 200, 300 years, back and forth between his birth as an immortal and the present day. This didn't really seem that hard to me. And systematically over time, the series... The third one is the one I always called The Apology, because it's essentially a remake of the first one. And ever since then, it kind of loses more and more of the core values of it. And Again, I'll get to this. There's such bad examples of this. The cartoon being one of them. The cartoon is a kids show, which to me it's really hard to have a Highlander show where there really aren't any decapitations. I think the only real heads taken in that show are by the bad guy. The good guy never actually kills anybody, which, again, really hard to reconcile. The way they handle it in the cartoon is they invent a way for the immortals to voluntarily give up their power. You know, the whole quickening thing, and so I call it having immortal sex, where they kind of stand together in a field and they hold a sword aloft and they join hands holding the sword and they have their gigantic lightning orgasm, and that's how they get their quickening. It's the good guy way of doing it. But I'll get into the cartoon later. Trust me, I will. Jeez, I've actually got maybe 3 Highlander reviews coming out, and they're really, you know, you might think you're going to get burned out on this. I don't know, you might, but they're really. This isn't like a gold mine for comedy, because they're all so bad, and they're so bad in so many different ways. Like, this one is bad because it completely just betrays every core premise of the Highlander franchise. Every rule that's been set up, basically, except the really insignificant ones, ironically, they're like, fuck it. And so, like, it's almost like, I always said, it's almost like they wrote this movie having never seen the first one. Like, it's almost, if some asshole at the video store just kind of, at the rental counter said, oh, Highlander, yeah, it's about these dudes who live forever and you cut their heads off, and that's about it. And so, if you wrote a sequel just based on that synopsis, that's it. Highlander 3, I always said, was okay because, like I said, it was a remake, but it was an inferior remake. There weren't. I don't even think there were any immortals aside from Mario Van Peebles. And I think there were that kind of hung out with Mario, but he kills them all. And so, basically, every sequel is they have to retcon something. So the second one, they really, I don't even think they attempt to retcon anything. They're like, they're aliens, and it does. I've gone a hour, none of it makes any sense. But the third one, they explain that he did win the prize. Third is a sequel to the first one, and it just kind of pretends the second one never happens. And so they say, like, oh, he wins the prize. But what Connor didn't know was that Mario Van Peebles is this ancient immortal who gets sealed in a cave. And he's sealed in this cave during the entire events of the first movie, and he finally finds his way out. And then the game starts over again. It's almost like the prize is literally taken away from Connor. It's almost like God forgot this guy existed. And so, like, oh, shit, oh, there was one more left. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, he's still around, so you got to fight him too. Yeah, it was really bad. The fourth one is another attempt to retcon, where at the end of the third one, he wins the prize again. But the fourth one, they try to tie in the TV show. You know, and now there's 2 McLeods running around, which was a good try, but I don't think they were ever meant to be. It's in many ways, you got to consider almost every Highlander movie like its own separate universe. You have to if you're trying to stay sane, but at the same time, they always try to connect them to each other. So now you have Connor and Duncan, and they have to fight in this movie, mainly because Christopher Lambert was visibly getting way too old for this role. You know, the guy, it almost been like, 15, 20 years since the first one. There's no way to hide that. But what set the fourth movie, Endgame, apart was the horrendous acting. Not the least of which from Adrian Paul, who I never really got the hang of as an actor or as a character. I always thought Duncan MacLeod was just about as dull as dishwater in terms of characterization. I always thought the show should be about Richie, because Richie was the audience proxy. He was the everyman character. He was the guy that the audience could relate to, who didn't know everything, and who was not actually the greatest swordsman on the planet, as Duncan was. So there was never any real fear that Duncan would lose any of these matches. I don't know. It was just me. But what really set 4 apart, in terms of acting, was what's his name, Bruce Payne, who played Jacob Kell. If you haven't seen Endgame, he turns in one of the all-time worst performances I've ever seen on film. And I actually will review Highlander Endgame probably not too far from now. I did a review at Screw Attack, SGC, with Pat the NES Punk, and it's not a traditional review in the style that I normally do it. It's more a review in Pat's style, but it still should be really funny, because That movie doesn't need much help to be hilariously bad. There's an anime, which honestly is okay. People say it's really good. It's not really good. It's acceptable. I honestly found it was really, really simplistic. But I guess simplicity is the way to go with this type of story, you know? And finally, there's The Source. Oh, The Source. Once again, I'll get to this when I actually do my review of The Source. Yes, that one's coming. And in fact, when I was doing research for this review, I saw The Source for the first time, and it was so bad that I wanted to stop doing Highlander 2 because I was so mad after watching The Source that I was raving, raving forever. It was horrendously bad. And again, that's the curse of being the Highlander fan is, after the first one, after the second one, it's going to be bad. It's going to be horrible, in fact, and yet you're compelled to watch it because you can't believe what they're doing to your favorite movie. It just doesn't seem that hard. How do they fuck it up? And they just do. But honestly, what held me back for a long time, I think I figured it out just now. What held me back for a long time is I couldn't get a copy of Highlander 2 that I wanted. I couldn't get a copy off of VCR for a long time. My technology was really limited, so I had to get a copy off of VCR. And the reason I had to get it off the VCR is because this movie is so bad, at least in this form, that it is not available on DVD, and it has basically been suppressed. It's so bad they pretty much slashed and burned every copy there was ever made. To the point where they've actually taken great pains to re-edit and reshoot scenes for this movie, or shoot new footage for the movie. So if you go look in the store for Highlander 2, you'll see it, but it is a highly edited version. And I'll explain how in a second, but, I'll explain how now. The alien thing is so stupid, so horribly dumb, the Zeist stuff, that they, almost immediately after its theatrical release, there was this, riots, it was, the fan backlash was apocalyptic, and so people couldn't, they were like, alien Zeist, really? And so, even on VHS, they immediately remade the movie. In fact, it was one of the first examples of a fan edit that you can ever point to. And a lot of people point to the Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Edit, as one of the first major fan edits. And actually, I think it was Highlander 2, The Renegade Cut, which I think you can find on DVD and VHS, The Renegade Cut. And that was actually... When I saw Highlander 2 in theaters a long time ago. I was a kid then, but when I rented it, I actually rented the Renegade Cut, and I was pissed off because they took the alien stuff out. They never mention the word Zeist or aliens or outer space or anything like that. Pardon me. In every version since then, the Renegade edit and the new versions, I think they call it the Ultimate Cut, the versions you see on DVD, they cut out any mention of Zeist or aliens. The future stuff still happens, but they do this thing, this card, the planet Zeist, that's not in there at all in any of the versions. These guys are still there, the fucking Insano twins, the cackling fucking hedgehog guys. I still don't get these dudes. But in any DVD version, they call it, the past? They really crudely dub in the words, instead of returning to Zeist, they say, you can't return to the past, or you can't return back home, or something like that, where they seem to imply the Zeist stuff takes place in the past. Some weird past with their spaceships and mysticism and shit like that, but... yeah, it doesn't really make much sense anymore than... It makes more sense than the Zeist stuff, at least, which I guess is all they were going for. And in the DVD versions, they had a bunch of shit where they really want to hammer home the fact that the shield... The fact that the shield... They build the shield to repair the ozone layer on the Earth. McCloud... these frolicking fuckers, man, I don't get these guys. They shoot a bunch of footage where they want to investigate the Shield, because the only scene you get in this version of it is she goes into the Shield Corporation dressed like a commando, and she reads a computer screen that says the ozone layer is normal. In big green letters, it's normal. So in the remade version, they go together and they climb up a mountaintop, and it's like a mountain that goes above the Shield somehow, and they look around and they're like, hey, the ozone layer's perfect. Like, nobody ever noticed that before. Like, there's no astronomers in the entire world. There's no scientists that are actively trying to find alternatives to this. They just like, oh, Shield's up, it's good, fuck it, you know. So, honestly, it probably is a better watch than... It's probably not horrible. It's definitely not any much better, but... I didn't want to review that version. I could. There was like no way. I was not going to put a Highlander review up because all I could get was footage off DVD, and I really wanted to get the VHS version, like really bad, because without the Zeist stuff, without the version that I saw, the full impact of the damage that was done to the series now and forever is complete, and you just don't get that. So they you know, the DVDs, they tried to kind of expunge the memory of the Zeist stuff. But for those of you who are alive at that time, you know, don't piss on our head and tell us it's raining. You know, you gotta, you still watch this movie. You want to see the Zeist stuff because you got to have the fun. You know, don't insult us, man. Just hit us with the fucking Zeist stuff. You know, you already heard us already. Don't pretend you didn't say it. You can't unsay Zeist. It's that bad. So. Eventually, I finally got a way. I got several ways now to pull footage off a VHS tape. So that's what I did. And if you want to see, you can still find VHS tapes entirely quickly. Yeah, I added a fuse box count. The fuse box count is one of those gags I thought I would have a lot more legs for, a lot more life into, and I just didn't. So people actually tell me I do way too many callback jokes, and so you know, they're mostly for me. And that wouldn't be the last time they actually, after the fact, went back and changed their movies because they did something so ridiculously stupid that the fans really knew better than the writers most of the time. And honestly, with a lot of these movies, it's almost like the writers didn't know what they were doing. They didn't even know the rules, the basic groundwork that was laid down for these things. And so, like in this movie, Katana, he says, like, we never fight on holy ground. And it raises the simple question, why? You know, what the fuck do they care? They're aliens. Like, they don't revere the Christian God or any other God, or at least no Earth gods. What the fuck do they care? And they've never really established the whole... none of it. And so, the thing about the Quickening, it's really clear early on what the Quickening is in the first movie. It's the power that emerges from the... When you kill another mortal, you get their power, and it's lightning, and that's what it is. You know, it's a big storm. It blows out plate glass for everything within a half mile. That's what it is. You know, or in many cases, actually, it's a little inconsistent even in the first movie where Ramirez shouts out, "You're feeling the quickening," and then he gets hit by lightning for no reason. And you're like, okay, and he can run like a stag. I don't know. In the third one, the whole idea of there being only one, but getting the prize when there's not only one, and then he has to do it again, and again, it's really simple rules where one just wonders. You're trying to think of a way around these rules, and they do, but it doesn't really work out. The big one in the fourth one, honestly, is the fourth one really has the immortal population explode. In the first one, it's never assumed there's more than like a dozen of them, you know, and they all know each other basically. And in the fourth one, it's modeled after the TV show where you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an immortal. In fact, there is a continuously replenishing supply of immortals because people are potentially immortal, and there's still new ones like Richie Ryan in the show is potentially immortal. So when he dies for the first time, he's immortal now. And so, like, one wonders how there can be only one when there's more of them coming out all the time. And you could say, like, oh, it's the Gathering, and at some point the Gathering will stop. But I thought the show actually took place during the Gathering. Really hard to keep straight. But Anyway, back to the thing where they kind of retcon continuity was in the original in the theatrical run of Highlander Endgame. There's a scene where Jacob Kell, the villain, goes to the Sanctuary, and the Sanctuary is where old immortals who are tired of fighting go, and they basically put themselves in a chemically induced coma, and they decide they're going to wait it out. They're just going to wait for, I don't even know how long, until the meds run out, I guess. And so it's they put the Sanctuary in holy ground so they're safe, and they can sleep there forever, and so they can kind of sit out the game, which again kind of pokes holes in the whole there can be only one thing, and it kind of seems to go violate the spirit of the whole idea, but whatever. So in the movie, Kell goes to the Sanctuary and murders all of them. He goes there and he just chops everyone's head off. And so the fan outrage was just huge, like, not the least of which because the movie sucked, but they're like, for the first time there was a guy who committed multiple murders on holy ground and was in no way punished in any way. Like, in the third one there's a fight on holy ground, and it's kind of implied that there's some kind of karmic backlash where the hero is basically saved from the bad guy by God or something like that. And there's in the show they actually did try to. There's a scene where they go, the Watcher's like, oh yeah, there's these two immortals going at it in a temple of Apollo, and the guy's like, well, where was that? And he goes, that was Pompeii, and he's like, I don't know what happened, but I'm just saying, you're rolling the dice. And so there's actually really good reasons, why these guys don't fight on holy ground, not the least of which is just common courtesy. But it's kind of implied there is something enforcing these rules. But in Highlander 4, there's a guy who goes around just chopping people's heads off in holy ground and nobody cares. And in fact, the only justification they give for this is in a cut scene. In the trailer, but not in the movie, there's a scene in Highlander 4 where he goes, I don't care about the game. So you had to have seen the trailer to have any kind of inclination as to why this guy would just blatantly go out of his way and violate one of their standing rules as to do this. But in the DVD versions of that movie, they take out references that the Sanctuary is on holy ground. They just say it's somewhere, So he kills all these dudes, but it's assumed they're not on holy ground. But even so, that doesn't make any sense, because why would you put your Sanctuary somewhere that isn't safe? No. But yeah, that's like they continually tinker with that stuff. And yeah, that was the ending of this one was they said it was the smartest sci-fi thriller since Blade Runner. I honestly don't know how that guy sleeps at night, if whether or not he meant it. If he meant it, oh my god, it's hard to believe there's someone that stupid. Oh man, or either he really didn't like Blade Runner. Back to what I was saying about Highlander Endgame, what was really funny was I actually got into a geeky argument with some fans. I kind of picked a fight with some dudes on the Highlander forums a while back, and I raised this as an issue. I was like, they changed it to where it's not holy ground. That doesn't make any sense. But, it's clearly holy ground, and in the movie, it's not the sort of thing you can just take back, because it's written into the script. And so they started arguing back, and they actually referenced Highlander 2 as a reason why Jacob Kell was able to get away with killing immortals on holy ground. And they said the actual line in Highlander 2 is General Katana says this sentence. He goes, remember the golden rule, we never fight on holy ground. And they said that's the key. I was like, what? What key? Please explain. And the guy said, he said the key word was, we never fight on holy ground. What Kell did was just kill them. There was no actual fighting taking place. I was like, you are so full of shit. Yeah, that was fans sometimes, man, they will pick some nuance to support their arguments, and they will really try to fool themselves into believing. Well, this guy really liked Highlander 2, and in fact would argue that it is somehow in continuity. I don't know, especially considering Connor McLeod dies at the end of Endgame. I really, man, you gotta stretch it. I don't know. Most insanity by definition cannot be understood. I always like the giant industrial fans. It's very Ridley Scott, although even Ridley Scott, I think, would not indulge in fans the size. Well, geez, this must be like what, 30-foot diameter fans. What are you trying to vent out of that office? I have no clue. And there's Mr. McGinley. How you doing? I was really disappointed. I really want to be able to do a good Dr. Cox impression, and I tried, and people were very nice. They said, "Oh, your Dr. Cox impression is nice." It's not. It sucks, but thank you. I appreciate your charity. He's got such a sardonic voice. It's really awesome. And actually, this movie reminds me of another great flick that he was in, playing almost the same character. Well, I guess Michael Caine was playing this character, but I can never remember the title of the movie, whether or not it's Fire Down Below or On Deadly Ground. It's a Steven Seagal movie, where he plays like an EPA investigator who's up against Michael Caine, who is a corrupt oil executive who is creating unsafe work conditions and price gouging oil. I don't know. McGinley plays one of his hitmen who is completely outclassed by Seagal at every turn. Yeah, it was pretty cool. The reason this episode was a two-parter is honestly because I showed no restraint here. With most reviews, I try to get them in under a half an hour, just because I wouldn't expect you to sit and watch my shit for any longer than you watch your standard, episode of TV. In this one, I hate Highlander 2 so much that I just said fuck it. And so, if this seems like I'm especially nitpicky on this movie, it's because I am. I just decided if I was going to do it, I was going to fucking demolish this goddamn movie and do it, which is why the best example is probably the rant I give at the beginning of the movie where Connor is listening to the radio and they say the Shield Corporation is being investigated for monopoly and price fixing, which, it's one of those things you only pick up on repeated viewings, but had rapidly become one of my key nitpicks, the ones that just get me raving whenever you mention this shit. So, I'm honestly, when it comes to Highlander, never get me started, because you'll probably get me. You'll probably have me on this exact same tangent for about 2 hours, and I'll talk your ear off about Highlander. But if you want to argue about it, hey, cool. I'm down with that. Same with Dune. All you got to do is say a Highlander quote or a Dune quote. Just shout there could be only one, and I'll shout it right back at you. So now, all the bad stuff being said about this movie, there are moments I really like. For instance, I really like McGinley's performance in this one because he nails it, I think. I don't know why that guy brought a gun to a staff meeting. But yeah, apparently he did. Yes, brilliantly done. Yeah, good one. There's a scene coming up that honestly is one of the best scenes filmed in the entire series, just because it really shows that these guys use their head and kind of use their powers for once to do something useful. It's the scene where Ramirez and Connor basically just blow through a checkpoint brute force and get shot, 300 times by the security guards. But they don't give a shit. They're immortal. They can get shot any number of times and they're okay. So I honestly think that was one of the better scenes of the entire series, was showing them actually using their powers as an advantage instead of just squaring off with swords and just hashing at it like any two normal people would. In fact, I always wanted to see a little more of that, where guys would use their immortality to their advantage. Maybe like you'd see a guy purposely take a crippling shot that would kill anybody else, like a shot right to the heart, and just kind of pull himself down the sword and use it to get close and hack the guy's head off, something like that, where really the only shot that you care about is any shot near the face, or something like that. I always thought that would be good. I have no idea in this scene why Katana is trying to buddy up to the boss of the Shield Corporation. It's really never made clear, except maybe for the fact that he figures that McLeod is trying to disable the Shield in some fashion, and he's going to be led right to him. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like he really needs this guy. And in fact, he doesn't. Yeah. Especially considering the fact that Katana threatens him on numerous occasions, and we never see McGinley without a retinue of shotgun-wielding troopers or machine-gun-wielding stormtroopers. It's, you can still put an immortal down if you shoot him enough times. I don't know. I'm nitpicking. I'm sorry. I think a major thing you'll notice in this movie as to why it really doesn't fit with the second movie is because it pretty much cuts out the flashbacks, which and I don't know why they have this urge to do that, because the flashbacks, for better or worse, are part and parcel of the entire concept of the show, where we're supposed to see back into their history to see how they've kind of come this far. It really is built into the whole concept of the show. So it's why the first one was so good, because we got to see his origin, of course, but we also got to see his history with the villain and all that stuff. And in this one, you don't really get that. You get to see flashbacks to Zeist, but I'm not counting that. And besides that, it's really cool to see these same characters in different historical periods. That's part of the charm of it. And so this movie never really does that. And 3, they go back and they do that a little bit. And 4, they even do that a little bit. But when it goes to the source, the final movie, or at least the movie that isn't the anime style one, whatever, once again, they dispose of the flashbacks. And so the movie is really just about a bland, brooding hero who never really progresses in a character sense and just goes and stabs people, and that's it. So that was a big thing. And back to what I was saying about the concept of they don't even really know what the quickening is in this movie. How was she not shot 1,000 times? In this movie, they really rejigger what they're talking about when it comes to the quickening. In fact, I don't even think they know. In this movie, they're never really consistent, because on Zeist, like, Ramirez whips his sword out. He's like, "Let him show himself. Let him feel the quickening." And then there's like a thunderclap, and he's like, "Huh?" And that's, I don't even know what that. Then they spread the magic orange juice, and they apparently get married on Zeist, and that's the quickening, or is it? And in this scene where the giant death trap fan starts lowering on them, I wonder who installed that, by the way. It seems awfully convenient, but I guess sometimes when you're the head of an evil corporation, you need such things. I guess I would install one if I could afford it. I mean, why not? But anyway, Ramirez he pulls this right out of his ass, where he's like, "I'm gonna hold it up with my magic." What, you didn't know we could do that, McLeod? And so, like, he gives this speech, and the bagpipes flare, and he summons his magic, and is that the quickening? I don't know. I never thought it was going to be this complicated, and yet they make it so hard to understand. Like, just they never implied this was possible until this point, and I don't know. This movie sucks. I guess I can laugh about it now. I think the thing you really have to understand, if you're not really seeing why this movie is so despised, or if you were never really that big a fan of Highlander, well, that's the problem right there. This, honest to God, is an acceptable, in terms of technical skill, movie. Like, I hate to say that. What I mean is, if you were to look at this movie and say, this is the worst movie ever made, you'd probably get a lot of people disagreeing with you, especially not the least of which people pointing at the really stereotypical ones like Manos or something like that. Nuts crushed. There are definitely worse movies, but it really ties into the first movie, where that one was so good and this one is so bad for so many reasons, and it not only is much worse than the first one, but it pretty much irrevocably destroyed the legacy of the entire series, to the point where the series after this became a joke. You know, no matter how many good movies they might have made after this, people say, like, yeah, there was number 2 though. And like the Halloween series, for instance, people always point to Halloween 3 as where it kind of ended, whereas like they did something that was completely un-Halloween, and honestly, I like Halloween 3. I thought it was one of the better ones out there, but it kind of, in terms of like betraying the series, is I think where they're coming from. But yeah, with this one, it's really a story of like the fall from grace with that series, where it was. I don't think there's ever been a series that was such a ruination of something that could have been really, really good. It was like a lot of movies that are worse than this, you have no anticipation for. Like when you see White Chicks, you're never thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great." So, and honestly, it comes down to, like, for instance, like Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's another one of those movies that was described as being one of the worst case of cinematic blue balls. It's like that, where it's not so much the worst movie ever made, although it gets lumped in there a lot. It's, in many ways, it's worse than being bad because it's disappointing. After the first one, you had such high expectations that they're like, oh, it can only get better from here. We're going to get more of the same. We're going to get, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery somehow sword fighting through the ages, and that's really hard to fuck up, and they did it, so this is one of those times where it was such a colossal letdown. That's where they're coming from when you talk about its place in movie infamy. And actually, I want to take back what I said when I said this movie was technically proficient, because from a screenwriting point of view, there are a number of really glaring flaws, not the least of which being the fact that the villain isn't really all that intimidating. And what I mean is, in this climactic fight, you're never really given an inclination as to whether or not this guy is dangerous. I mean, the guy's got scars, he's got the hair, and it's Michael Ironsides. He looks kind of ugly, but at no point up to this point do you ever see him fight. So you don't know if you can take Connor on, and in fact, you rather doubt it, because at every turn, this guy sends his stupid monkeys out to do his work for him. He really seems like a poser, and where in the first movie, you've got the Kurgan, who we actually see him fight on numerous occasions. They actually do mix it up several times in the movie. And, he fights Connor early on where it's clear that the Kurgan is a gigantic, hulking, cheating motherfucker who pretty much has Connor beat in terms of, like, killer instinct, strength, sword skill. He's got a much bigger sword. He's armored in several cases. And in fact, the first time they meet, he kicks Connor's ass. So, at the end of the fight, there's drama there. You're thinking, oh man, he's gotten beat so many times. Is he going to overcome the odds and beat this guy? In this movie, you've got they only fight for the first time at the very end of the movie. So, we see Connor as an old man easily beat his two henchmen, and it's not really a contest. So there's a lot of the inherent drama there is just taken out of it when we never see Katana. Katana's never built up effectively, and that was really a fault of the screenplay. And a lot of people know about there's an alternate scene at the end of this one. I actually think you can see it on the DVDs, where once again at the end of the movie, I pose the question. Yeah, they say a very long time ago on the DVDs. I pose the question: why would McLeod ever want to go back to Zeiss? That place is a shithole. And so at the end of the VHS movie, it's never really clear, even after beating Katana, that he's going to go back. Why would he? He saved the planet. Things are looking up on Earth. Why would he want to go back to fucking Zeiss? And so at the end of the VHS copy, once again, that's like a plot element that's never really tied up. I even like, my favorite part of that movie is when Katana goes down and he says, "You're never going to return to Zeiss, McLeod." And McLeod's like, "I never meant to." And Katana gets this look on his face like, "Oh shit, I just wasted all this time." And McLeod's like, "Yeah, now I'm going to fucking kill you because you ruined my life, But the deleted scene online is called, I think it's called the fairy tale ending, where, in fact, it might be at the very end of this show. Oh, this moment from the show. Darius! Adrian. That was Adrian at his most dramatic. That was his con. The fairy tale ending it shows like Connor, after winning the prize for the third time, floating amidst a really obvious green screen. He's like, "Come with me back to Zeist," and so they float off into the distance together, and it's really fruity, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But you can see why they cut it, because it looked really cheese. Yeah, Highlander the Raven was actually, it's a spin-off of the TV show that, honestly, it wasn't that bad. Man, I hate to say that because it was pretty bad, but it was just very not Highlander in the sense it was more a police procedural. It was like a cop show just where one of the people happened to be immortal. It was weird. It was a funny show, but my main problem with The Raven was the fact that the entire show is about Amanda, okay? And Amanda has blonde hair, and I just don't see how you can call the show The Raven when you've got a chick who's basically got platinum blonde hair, where she had, like, brunette/black hair through most of the show. You know, that blew my mind, how it's just fundamental things, like, you watch, like, let's just say you're tuning into the show at random, you're watching this fucking show, and you're like, okay, who's the Raven? There's nobody who looks even remotely Raven-ish, because Ravens aren't exactly known for being white. But yeah, the next review that's coming up, or, well, not the next review, because actually I wanted to do a Halloween review. I started realizing I hadn't planned a Halloween review, so I was actually working on Highlander the Source. And actually you probably saw a hint of that when I showed a clip of it. A really, really bad clip. I am working on Highlander the Source, but I really want to do the Halloween review first. And actually, I even got... This happens to me where I get really inspired to do a review, and so whatever I'm working on kind of gets pushed to the side as I rush something else through. But there's probably 1 or 2 reviews before I get to Highlander the Source, even though that was number 1 on my list. Yeah, we're working on it. So, but honestly, seriously, I hope you're not disheartened by the fact that I'm doing a lot of Highlander stuff in the near future, because even though I am doing a lot of Highlander stuff, they are all very different. So, and I'm not going to keep bitching about continuity all that much, you know, in terms of like, oh, this isn't Highlander, this isn't Highlander. They really are bad, and they stand on their own in terms of badness. Oh yeah, this is the infamous fairy tale ending. I'm not sure where this aired. If it was, I really don't think this was in the theatrical version. I probably would have remembered it. Probably in the UK versions. The UK always gets the good stuff like this. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you guys at Halloween. I've got a very special treat for you this Halloween, and actually, I don't know why it took me so long to think of what I was going to do for Halloween, because it's obvious. All I had to do was look on my movie shelf for the perfect Halloween movie, because what better way to ring in the All Hallows Eve than with a good old-fashioned Reb Brown movie? And well, you'll just have to see, because it's Reb at his finest. In fact, it's probably his most... Geez, I hate to say his most mainstream release, but yeah, we're going to see some Reb Brown for Halloween. It's going to be awesome. Have fun, guys.
Come with me.
I can't, and you know it.
Sure you can.
How?
It's a can of magic. Come on. We can do it.
Remember, Highlander, you've both still got your full measure of life. Use it well, and your future will be glorious.